Hey folks, welcome back. I got something a little retro for you here today. I've been wanting one for a while, and I finally found one that I was willing to pay the coin for that was in reasonably good shape. So today I'm going to be doing a review over a Colt 70 series, and it's the Mark IV. This one was built in 1979. So stick around, we'll go up close and look at this thing. All right, so here we have a Colt 70 series, 1979 manufacture. Let's get up and look at those roll marks. It's a Colt Mark IV. It's a government model. All right. It doesn't have the gaudy big roll marks on it. Can't stand those big roll marks. It does have the collet bushing in the front. It came factory standard with everything that's on it. This is an unmolested gun. Thank goodness. These are hard to find. This was an original gun that I found with the original box. I ran the numbers through Colt, and it came up to be built in 1979. You can see some light marks in the finish when you get the light just right, but those marks are really hard to see when you're looking at the gun off camera. This thing is a no frills. This is, if you went to a gun shop in 1979 and told them you wanted to buy a Colt 1911 chambered in 45 ACP, this is exactly what you would get. These are the original grips, and they're actually in really good shape. Let's turn this thing around and take a look at it. These grips are in really good shape. The finish on the gun, there's a little bit of a haze, but not much. The actual finish of the gun is in really good shape. The hammer's in really good shape. The slide to frame in the back, there's not a large gap overhang of the slide to the frame. That's common in Colts. You'll get where the frame will hang over the slide in the rear, and it's kind of unsightly. This one, it's a standard ejection port. It's lowered just a little bit from the old GI models, but not much. Like I said, it does have a collet bushing in the front. I'll take it apart here in a second, and I'll show you what that collet bushing is. Standard GI guide rod and plug. This thing is actually in pretty good shape, and it hasn't been shot a ton from what I can tell. So let's take this thing apart and look at some of these internals. All right, so let's look at this thing. I said collet style bushing. This is a collet bushing. Basically, you have 4 fingers on this bushing. It's not solid. You have 4 fingers that actually clamp around the barrel. It has a nice tight fit around the barrel. And as long as the bushing is fit good to the slide, it helps with accuracy. Colt went away from their standard bushing. I can't remember what year they went away from their standard bushing, but they went to this collet style bushing, and a true 70 series gun, the one that people call 70 series, will have this collet bushing on it. Now, one thing about these collet bushings is they can break. So if you're going to shoot a gun that has one of these collet bushings on it, I would recommend to take this collet bushing out and use a standard bushing on it. That way you don't break this one. These are, I'm not going to say they're expensive, but if you have an original 70 series gun, you want to keep that collet bushing intact. Now, let's look at the slide stop here. I said this gun wasn't fired much, and we look at the slide stop. You have a piece in the center to where the link is running. Now, on modern guns, you don't want what we call a link rider. You don't want the link of the barrel here to be riding on the slide stop. You want the feet or the lower lugs of the barrel to have contact on the slide stop. If that was the case, you would have, let me get me a little pointer out here. If that was the case, you would have, if you had the link riding, you would have a mark here and a mark here, and you wouldn't have that mark in the center. That mark in the center is caused from the link. You want the feet or the lower lugs to ride on this slide stop here. So just like with every other Colt that's ever been manufactured, this is a link rider, okay? It is what it is. These are not hand-fit guns. These are mass-produced guns, and it's a link rider. Doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. What it means is the first thing that's going to break is the link, all right? Because that's what locks the gun up, and that will probably break someday. That's okay. It's going to take thousands of rounds for that thing to break. So I'm okay with that. Like I said, this is an unmolested gun, and I'm going to keep it that way. I'm not even going to do a trigger job on it, and you know how I am about trigger jobs. The barrel hood, all right? You look at the barrel hood on this gun. There's some marks on it from where it's been shot, but it's not been shot a lot. If you'll also look at the upper lugs on this gun, they're still nice and crisp, nice and sharp, so that tells me this gun has not been shot a lot. Because normally, if a gun's been shot a lot, get my pointer back out here, if a gun's been shot a lot, these links, or these upper barrel links in the front right here, they will round over or start to peen. So it tells me that this gun has not been shot a lot because these are still nice and crisp and sharp. Another thing, this barrel is blued. So if it had been shot quite a bit, there would be more wear on this barrel. That bluing from where the collet rides, those little marks right there, that's where the collet bushing rides on the barrel. So if this gun had been shot a lot, there would be a lot more wear on this barrel, especially from that collet bushing. Inside, if you'll look at the chamber, new Colts have what they call a dimple right here. It's a little cutout. This is an older one, so this barrel has been throated from the factory. This is not a hand throat job. This is throated from the factory, and that's how they came. Now, let's look at the frame of this gun. You can see there's a little wear there and there on the frame, and we flip it around, you'll see that there's some wear there and there. If this gun had been shot a lot, there would be quite a bit more wear on that frame. Okay, this gun has been shot, but it has not been shot a lot. I would be willing to bet this gun has 1,000 or less rounds on it based on the wear that is on the gun. Another thing we can look at to see how the gun, or if the gun's been shot, is the breech face. This is going to be hard for me to point out to you because there's a shadow. But the breech face right in here, where my finger is, that shows wear, and the more it's shot, the more wear it shows. So there is some wear there, but it's not significant. Okay. Also, I've already looked off camera the extractor over here on the right hand side, where just above my thumb, it's in good condition. Right here where the crap, what am I gonna call the well, this right here, right where that right there runs, it is not worn especially bad. The disconnect, it slipped my mind for a second, but right where the disconnect runs, it's not terribly worn, so there's not a lot of rounds on this gun. You can also see on the slide where it runs in the frame, there and there. There's some wear, but it's not bad. Also, let's look inside at these upper lugs in the slide. There's not a lot of wear on those. So this gun has not been shot a terribly high round count, all right? Also, the spring in this gun, it feels like it's a standard 16-pound spring. Guns that came out in World War I, World War II, they came out with 16-pound springs. This is the recoil spring, so it comes out with a 16-pound spring. Back in the, I won't say the 80s, definitely in the 90s and in the 2000s, they would up that spring to an 18-pound spring because it would soften the rearward recoil. But one thing it didn't do, it sent that slide home really fast, and it could be hard on this slide stop here. This slide stop is a milled, tooled steel part, all right? This is still what they use today. This barrel is the same type of barrel Colt has been using for generations. This frame, up until later on in the 2000s, was built on the same exact machinery that the guns from World War I and World War II were made. This slide is built on the same machinery that the guns from World War I and World War II were built on. Recently, when I say recently, I think in the 2010s, Colt invested in CNC machines to replace the old machinery they had. But this gun was built on the same machinery that built the World War I and World War II guns. So let's put this thing back together and take a look at it whole. All right, so my Colt 70 series, built in 1979. I know a lot of y'all probably aren't going to find much to gush about with this gun, but I'm a sucker for blued steel and wood. Blued steel and wood. I love classic Colt guns. I can't help it. I just love them. Now, with this gun, I am going to shoot it. I'm going to do a range review on it. And I will probably bring this gun out once or twice a year, and I will probably shoot it. I'm not going to put 10, 15,000 rounds a year on this gun. I want to keep this gun and hand it down to my kids. Well, will they find anything exciting about it? Probably not. But to me, this is the essence of America. This is a 1911. This is the sidearm that helped win 2 wars. You can say what you want. I don't care. I love it. This screams America. And I love it. Like I said, I am going to do a range review on it. I will give you an honest opinion of it. Before I do that, before I close it out, remember how everybody always says Colts are rattle traps. They're loose, just as loose as can be. I don't know if you can hear that. This one's loose. Now, I've owned World War II 1911s that were bringbacks. And the one that I owned, it was a Colt, a 1942 production Colt. It was tight. It was real tight. The World War I owned a World War I. It was a 1918, built in November of 1918, just after the war ended, but yet it was still shipped off to be in service. Even though it never actually saw action, it was a wartime gun. It was tight, real tight. Granted, by the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that old machinery that Colt was using was getting worn out. They should have replaced that machinery probably in the late 60s or early 70s. And by the time it got around to 1979, when this one was made, there's some definite movement. Now, I will say it's not as much as you think. There are new guns coming out from Springfield, Kimber, Colt that have just as much movement as this one does right now. It has some side-to-side movement, very little up and down movement, if any. The barrel is tight as can be. What that means is, with the collet bushing in the front, as long as it's fit good, and the tight barrel in the rear, it's probably going to be a decent shooter. Now this gun wasn't meant to shoot hollow point ammunition. This gun was meant to shoot hardball ammo, and that's what I'm going to be putting through it. I will have to say, most of my reloads, though, are 185 grain semi-wad cutters, and sometimes those things give these old Colts a fit. So we'll see how those 185s run through this old baby right here. And it's an original magazine that came with it, Colt mag, but I don't know if it's the original magazine to the gun. I don't think it is, because it has the dimple in the top right there. So I do not think this is an original 1979 magazine. It also has the cutouts on the lips on either side to help feed semi-wad cutters. So I'm pretty sure this is not the original magazine to the gun. But we are going to take this thing out. We are going to do a range review with it. And I will probably be giddy like a little schoolgirl the whole time I'm doing it. I don't care if I can't hit the broadside of the barn. I just love these old Colts. And hopefully I can add a couple more to the stable within the next year or two. I appreciate y'all stopping by. And if you don't mind, give the video a like if you liked it. Think about subscribing to the channel. I'm trying to build up my base here a little bit. But again, thank y'all for stopping by, and y'all have a good one.